Good morning, colleagues and teacher. Today we met with the educational counselors and we are going to interview them regarding the topic work and study, strategies to maintain balance.
La orientadora Beatriz Sánchez y Marisol Mendoza.
We will ask them some questions if it is out of the desire to interview them and obtain better information. What would you say about the role planning and organization plays in the success of students who work and study?
It is very fundamental because this way students can balance both their academic positions and their way of working this, since it tries to allow short-term goals to be prioritized in different tasks. Long deadline is setting specific times effectively so we know when to do it, how to do it, and how to distribute it. Or just case sufficient.
From an interesting personal perspective, what do you believe are the most common mistakes students make in attempting to balance work and studies?
Well, one of the errors that we have identified within the institutions is that students do not establish or do not prioritize those activities, and how can they resolve it? Well, the key is to prioritize tasks, both academically and in his work. The second error that we find is that they are not realistic with their times, and that it is important that they give priority and be honest with the established time. That is, that they do not exceed themselves, but that they do not do so either. And finally, and we'll let them take some breaks. I've recovered like those energies, and well, that limits us to.
Okay, all this that we are talking about is quite interesting and leads me to a next question. Well, if you consider that there are specific techniques for this type of students that they have, well, these types of situations,
there are different techniques that can be handled or addressed, but relatively you should consider them depending on the needs of each student, because, for example, not all students have the same need to solve, but 3 techniques could be considered that are as general or very fundamental to be able to implement them. One of them is the technique. A certain time to be able to study is approximately 25 minutes with 5 minutes of rest. This is relatively 4 cycles that can work, trying to make the rest times a little longer. Another technique they can implement would be like the most phase Hilson. This is like classifying the different tasks by trying to classify them as urgent or priority, and then trying to delegate or postpone different activities that are not as high impact as another general technique could do weekly planning. This in turn is trying to use different agendas either weekly, trying to tie them academically, and trying to tie them as work activities or Alright.
and all these techniques are based on time and also on study, right?
They can prioritize them, for example, for certain types of study, or prioritize them for certain types of work, as long as they first recognize the need that the student has, and based on that, implement some strategy.
What advice would they give a student so that his study method can be adapted to a work schedule?
Complete more than anything it is.
The second is morning and evening use. This can mean that they have a fixed study schedule, and what we recommend is how to study, or in the mornings that they have as free hours between classes or at night.
Since we're talking about this, I think it's the topic of free time from all this. I would like to ask what strategies they have to avoid procrastination, more than anything in people who tend to.
To have adequate responsibilities. Establish personal deadlines. Therefore, eliminate those distractions.
When considering this, how can students set clear and attainable management goals while working?
Well, some of the strategies that can be implemented is to establish smart notes that are relevant and considering a certain time so that they regularly try to ensure that they are aligned with their capabilities. In the sense of saying that they can be achievable in the short term and that it is also based on the available time that the students have, also considering the burdens they have at work and considering academics so that they do not feel like this accumulation of these goals, that they are also meticulous and that they can
There's something very important that while I was talking to you about this, and it is how students can stay motivated by having this life is not that complicated, so to speak.
The purpose they have, for example, the purpose whether educational or the purpose they have at work, then is to take time for themselves, not to overload themselves either academically or at work, and try to look for support networks that can provide them go that help or that support, okay? Like
Counselors or advisors, would you recommend or do you have any knowledge about any application that can help students or young people? Is managing better than better?
Minor your time? Yes. In fact, they exist since different applications that they can handle are applications that are some of these applications can be quite engaging. All right.
And almost to conclude, what resources or services should the University of Guanajuato offer for all these students who also work? Which ones?
You guys generally think are really or various things, and for students it still feels like insurance.
Or K, because that would be pretty much all. Thank you very much for your attention, for receiving us here. We are quite happy that you have shared all your knowledge and all your time with us, right? Thank you very much, and something you would like to comment or say? Give a final thought with a reflection.
I would say that, for instance, in the last question, you as students have access to all these services, but often you do not utilize them. So it is also like in this sense of trying to use them or trying to receive that support from their support networks, because, well, they do have them. There are other institutions that may not have all these services, but nevertheless you hear as in these divisions or in these faculties, because they now practically have the use of them, but more nevertheless. Well, that's it.
That would be everything. Thank you very much for seeing that. Any comment doubts you have can put it in the comment box. Thank you very much.